Tonight, tributes for Steele Hall, South Australia's 36th Premier, who's died aged 95. Also tonight, deepening political divisions in Israel over the handling of the war in Gaza. An outpouring of grief for Michael Mosley as new details emerge about the TV presenter's final moments. And the Pies freeze the D's at the G on a day all about MND. Good evening, Evelyn Leckie with ABC News South Australia. Former Premier Steele Hall has died aged 95. He's been remembered across the political landscape as a principled leader who put the state ahead of the party's interests. And he remains SA's youngest Premier, who also served in the South Australian federal parliaments for more than 30 years.
Reformer, MP, Senator and Premier.
Well, our formula is to encourage private industry, private enterprise again.
Steele Hall steered South Australia at the end of the 60s and drove electoral reforms that ended up costing his party office. He entered state parliament in 1959 during the Playford administration, then succeeded SA's longest-serving premier as party leader following the 1965 election defeat, before taking the Liberal Country League, or LCL, to victory 2 years later. His eventual win against Don Dunstan making him the state's youngest premier as a 39-year-old.
Would you be surprised if you weren't premier sometime this year? I would be, yes.
During his just over 2 years as Premier, he helped settle on the site for the festival centre. But Hall dismantled the electoral system known as the Playmander in reference to his former boss, which favoured Country SA, a move that would cost him the 1970 election.
I am willing to stand up in any meeting, in any place, in any electorate. I am not ashamed of my policy.
Hall left the LCL to head up a new party, Liberal Movement, a banner under which he was elected to the Senate in 1974. He attempted to move to the federal lower house but failed, a shift he did manage to make once he returned to the broader Liberal fold, holding Boothby and Adelaide South for more than a decade until retiring in 1996. His death marked by premiers past and present.
He was a politician that had courage of his convictions and followed through on them, even though it put at risk his government and his premiership.
But Steele Hall was remarkable in a number of other ways. He, of course, is the only Australian politician ever to be a premier, but then also elected to both the Federal Senate and the Federal House of Representatives.
While the state's most recent Liberal Premier Stephen Marshall paid tribute, saying in a statement, very few people can say they made the political system they led fairer. Steele could, but it wasn't his habit to speak of himself. Hall is survived by his wife Joan and his 6 children. Peter Malinauskas has offered the Hall family a state funeral. Rory McLaren, ABC News.
Former Liberal Minister Jennifer Cashmore has died at the age of 86. Ms Cashmore was the third woman to be elected to SA's House of Assembly and was a Minister of Health and Tourism from 1979 to 1982. She was the first to raise concerns in Parliament about the State Bank ahead of its collapse in 1991. She had 3 children, including the state's Governor, Francis Adamson. Just 24 hours after celebrating the return of 4 Israeli hostages, Benjamin Netanyahu's grip on power has been dealt a blow. Key Minister Benny Gantz has quit the war cabinet, accusing Netanyahu of putting his own political survival ahead of the war. The move has deepened divisions within Israel's leadership, with growing anger over the direction of the conflict.
Escorted across the Gaza beach, the moment freedom was in sight for 4 Israeli hostages. The Defence Forces releasing more images of their high-stakes rescue mission. But the celebration for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was short-lived. Hours after the successful rescue, Benny Gantz, a key minister in his 3-person war cabinet, dramatically quit over the handling of the war.
Netanyahu is preventing us from advancing towards true victory. I am leaving the government today with a heavy heart.
The former Defence Minister has repeatedly clashed with Benjamin Netanyahu over post-war plans and had issued him with an ultimatum. He's accused Netanyahu of putting his political survival before the lives of hostages and prolonging the war.
האמת היא שהמציאות לא פשוטה.
I won't promise you an easy and quick victory. You deserve more than empty promises, but the State of Israel can and must achieve true victory.
He's calling on Netanyahu to name a date for an early election and let Israeli citizens decide. Anger within Israel over the war has been boiling for months, with hundreds of thousands taking their fury to the streets.
Netanyahu is trying to appear large and in charge now. If he wants to do that, then he might have to start playing by the United States rules rather than by his own personal ambition, his political gain, which has clearly been driving him until now.
Netanyahu posted on social media appealing to Gantz to stay on, saying, "Benny, this is not the time to abandon the battle. This is the time to join forces."
Benny Gantz's departure won't topple the government, but it leaves the door open for extremist coalition members to push their agenda of continuing the war and to complete Israeli occupation of Gaza. And it's likely to lead the US to taking a more active role in moderating the trajectory of this war and pushing for a ceasefire. Alison Horn, ABC News, Jerusalem.
There has been an outpouring of grief and love for TV presenter and diet guru Michael Mosley. He's been remembered as an adventurous man who was kind and funny. His body was found on the Greek island of Symi, and it's now been revealed that it was a TV crew filming on the island who made the tragic find.
It was a Greek TV crew filming the island of Symi from on board a boat that spotted a figure on a rocky hill.
And you can clearly see there is a man lying down with his hand on his belly, a watch, and on his other hand he has his bag.
After 4 days of searching by air, land and sea for Dr. Michael Mosley, a grim discovery.
I'm really sorry for the family. I'm sorry that I'm the one who found him. Sorry.
A statement from his wife, Dr. Claire Bailey Mosley, confirming the worst. "It is devastating to have lost Michael, my wonderful, funny, kind and brilliant husband. He did an incredible climb, took the wrong route and collapsed. We're taking comfort in the fact that he so very nearly made it." He was found metres from Agia Marina Beach, around an area where search and rescue teams, locals and tourists alike, had been scouring. Police believe he had been dead for a number of days. Michael Mosley left his wife from St Nicholas Beach, setting off for a walk, but never returned. 20 minutes later, he was spotted on CCTV in the nearby town of Pedi. He was then seen again at the marina, heading northeast. The diet doctor is being remembered as a loving man.
People will remember him, people will smile. Anyone who met Mike will always smile because he was such a loving, kind, generous person.
Now, the diet I'm about to go on was...
Following a diabetes diagnosis, Michael Mosley popularised intermittent fasting with his 5-2 diet.
And it's also good for my heart and lungs.
But he was best known for entertaining audiences and inspiring people to live a happier and healthier life.
The number of people who queue up at his events, not to get signed copies of his books, but to say thank you, I followed your advice and it made a huge difference to me.
The body of the 67-year-old has been transferred to the neighbouring island of Rhodes, with a coroner to determine the exact cause of his death. A tragic end for his 4 children and wife of more than 35 years and the thousands of people whose lives he changed. Rani Hayman, ABC News.
The Prime Minister is confident Australia can meet its 2030 emissions reductions target after the coalition cast doubts on the commitment. Anthony Albanese has ramped up the government's attack on the opposition after it announced plans to dump Australia's short-term climate plans if it wins the election. Political reporter Stephanie Boris has more.
Happy King's Birthday weekend, everyone.
A right royal bollocking.
Peter Dutton is walking away from climate action.
The Prime Minister taking aim at the coalition over its plans to dump some of Australia's climate policies.
You can't shape the future if you're afraid of it.
Nearly 200 countries signed the Paris Agreement, a commitment to keep global warming below 2 degrees. Australia promised by 2030 it would reduce emissions by 43%, but the opposition says that's not possible under a Labor or Liberal government.
You need to come clean with the Australian people on that.
Australia's climate watchdog says the government is close but not on track to meet its 2030 target. The Prime Minister's pointed to new projects and policies he says will boost the use of renewables.
I'm very confident not only that we can get there, but importantly that we must get there.
It's looking pretty tough, to be honest. I think they're the right sorts of policies, but the problem has been that they haven't been strong enough and tight enough to absolutely drive towards the 2030 target.
Further down the track, the coalition insists net zero by 2050 is achievable, but there's no detail on what the party's short-term plan is.
While, of course, I won't be announcing the coalition's climate and energy policy today, what I can tell you when it comes to targets, we won't be plucking a number out of thin air.
If the coalition submits a less ambitious 2030 target, Australia would be the first country to do so under the Paris Agreement.
Weakening our 2030 target would be a slap in the face of the spirit and intent of the Paris Agreement and to our neighbours in the Pacific. It would also endanger us in terms of global trade and diplomatic arrangements, but not necessarily have any punishment within the Paris Agreement.
Environmental benefits aside, the point of having targets is to set incentives and create certainty for investors with hundreds of billions of dollars to spend on whatever replaces coal. Another argument over targets sows doubt among investors who'll be weighing up decisions well beyond the next election. Stephanie Boris, ABC News, Canberra.
There's been fresh calls for the South Australian government to lower payroll tax for small businesses amid wage increases and cost of living pressures. The opposition says the state budget has abandoned small business owners struggling to keep their doors open. SA's latest budget includes $20 million to help eligible small businesses invest in energy-saving initiatives. But a local venue owner says operators like herself need more to stay afloat.
We've been making cuts for the last 2 months. So this week my management team was tasked with cutting 15 hours a week out of the kitchen roster in both venues. They've been tasked with cutting a further 10 hours a week off the front of house roster.
We've been concentrating on making sure the economy is growing, making sure customers have got enough money in their pockets, and also that they've got access to this $20 million fund.
The state's RSPCA says it will be able to increase the number of animal welfare inspectors it employs from 7 to 17 with new funding from the state government. The latest budget provides more than $16 million over 4 years to help enforce new animal welfare laws, which it's planning to introduce to Parliament by the end of this year. The RSPCA also opened a new $28 million animal care centre at O'Halloran Hill last month. The organisation's chief executive says the money will be used to better fund the inspectorate,
so that we can really drive better outcomes and start to invest those funds, those important donor funds, into prevention activity.
Gains by far-right parties in EU elections has prompted a bruised French President Emmanuel Macron to call a snap national election. In what's being viewed as a gamble to re-establish his authority, Macron labelled the rise of nationalism a danger to Europe, calling French citizens to the ballot box just weeks out from the Paris Olympics.
A resounding vote in favour of the far right in France. In a high-risk gamble that could see his party humbled again, Emmanuel Macron has dissolved the French Parliament and called a snap election for just weeks before the Paris Olympics.
This is a situation that I cannot come to terms with. The rise of nationalists, of demagogues, is a danger for our nation.
Far-right opposition leader Marine Le Pen celebrating her party's surge at the ballot box. She's the big winner today and could well repeat that success in a few weeks.
We are ready to exercise power if the French place their trust in us during the future legislative elections.
But signs that Le Pen's success has also re-energised her opponents, hundreds protesting her party's result in central Paris.
I think there's generally a feeling of disquiet and of sadness at the results of this vote here.
In the last French election 2 years ago, Emmanuel Macron retained government with almost 60% of the vote. But these European elections appear to show that support for the far-right opposition in France has since grown. The far-right also doing well in other major European countries. They made big gains in Germany and Spain too. But that wasn't true everywhere, the political centre maintaining its majority in the EU Parliament.
Together with others, we will build a bastion against the extremes from the left and from the right. We will stop them.
The elections determine the makeup of European Parliament for the next 5 years, and the far-right's increased number of seats could make it harder to agree on policies for nearly 500 million Europeans. Michelle Rimmer, ABC News.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been sworn in for a historic third term in office. Thousands attended the ceremony, which took place at the Presidential Palace in New Delhi, with cheers erupting from the crowd when he stepped up to the podium to make his pledge. It's the first time Modi has been forced to govern in a power-sharing arrangement after his BJP party failed to secure an absolute majority in recent elections. Voters punished his party over rising unemployment and food prices. From artists and sporting legends to public servants and swimming teachers, more than 700 people have been recognised for their service in this year's King's Honours list. For the fourth year in a row, pandemic leaders have also been given a nod. Victoria Pingili reports.
Their skills vary, but these Australians are truly remarkable. Among those recognised in this year's King's Honours, Gamilaroi chef Auntie Beryl Van Oplu from Redfern in Sydney. A culinary master, her knowledge of native bush tucker is used across the world.
You know, I'm 81 now and I think it's a great honour to have that, and the people that have nominated me, I thank them very much.
More than 700 people were honoured on this year's roll, including Perth youth worker Pat Ryan, who's helping young people heal by putting wheels in motion.
We aim to dismantle young people's disadvantage so that they can pursue a future with hope.
6 Australians were awarded the top honour, the Companion of the Order of Australia. Former COVID-era Labor Premiers Mark McGowan and Daniel Andrews also given the nod for their leadership, as well as this South Australian epidemiologist for her work improving vaccination rates in remote communities.
I'm thrilled that public health has also been recognised. Normally we're behind the scenes, nobody knows who we are. Good public health means you shouldn't notice us.
In Queensland, rock legend and former Powderfinger player John Collins is being recognised for his work off-stage, supporting struggling artists.
Hey mate.
How are you?
Good, how are you? The costs have gone through the roof for smaller venues. That sort of natural progression from people going to see young artists was broken through COVID, and I don't think it's come back yet.
For the family of former AFL football legend John Devine, pride and sadness at his posthumous award.
He really valued the contribution he made to the people that he coached. And I know he took a lot of pride in seeing those people turn into successful people in the community, and hopefully he had a little bit of a role to play in that.
From quiet achievers like women's community organiser Margaret Finlaker-Smith, to big personalities like comedian Hamish Blake, children's entertainer Jimmy Giggle, and cricket great Glenn McGrath.
Had a pat on the back.
There's a raft of homegrown talent. Victoria Pengilly, ABC News.
Coming up on 7:30 with Laura Tingle, the regional city predicted to run out of water within 2 years.
We do have a situation here where we are running out of time.
I started this business from nothing. Why would you want to put a desalination plant in an aquaculture zone?
We're at D-Day here. We don't have the luxury of time, and the alternative is delay will mean disaster.
Also, I'll speak to former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull.
A spate of recent fatal crashes involving trucks on Australian roads has put families in the industry on edge. Between January and April this year, 55 people were killed in accidents involving heavy vehicles. While there have been improvements in road safety, statistics show the majority of multi-vehicle crashes involving trucks are caused by other drivers.
Every time Leah Hughes says goodbye to her truck driver husband before work, she fears it could be the last time.
You always stop, pause, really take that time, and at the back of your mind, he might not come home.
When there's news of a truck crash, Leah tries to stay calm and find out as much information as she can.
It's also pretty bad when a picture of the truck goes up before the relatives are even told, which frequently happens now in this. Everybody's videoing everything.
Drivers say there are multiple factors that contribute to safety.
I think about the weight of the truck I'm in, the weight of the load I'm carrying, and think that's a rolling death trap, really.
But it's the behaviour of other road users that poses the greatest risk.
When you're driving, you think about oncoming traffic and you look at them to say, if something happened, where's my escape route?
Despite the recent spate of truck crashes, trucking organisations say the industry is much safer than it was.
We do have accidents. We don't want any. But over the last 25 years, the number of fatal truck crashes has absolutely plummeted, despite a big increase in the amount of freight on the road.
Fatal crashes involving articulated trucks are slowly declining, but the National Road Safety Strategy shows that fatalities in crashes involving heavy, rigid trucks and buses have not reduced in the past decade. And the strategy suggests that 80% of fatal multiple vehicle crashes involving heavy trucks are not the fault of the truck driver. Annabelle Francis, ABC News.
Collingwood has moved into the AFL's top 8 after claiming honours in this year's King's Birthday clash against Melbourne, defeating the D's by 38 points. For the 10th year, fans made the walk to the MCG in support of Fight MND's Big Freeze.
A sea of support for the Danaher family as the Big Freeze enters double digits.
Seeing Dad smile up at the top, I'm really emotional actually. It's just been an amazing day.
Neil took his usual spot as this year's batch of sliders took the plunge into the icy water. The costumes once again colourful, musicians the alter ego of many, but the message remaining the same.
Where the whole country just comes together and, rallies for him and so many families that are going through this.
Beanies, everyone!
Thousands of Demons faithful made the trek to the G from Federation Square. Among those, Neil's brother Terry.
It's just getting bigger. But more importantly, we just got to find a cure for this damn thing.
Coming off a 92-point loss to Fremantle the round prior, Melbourne were hoping for a much better performance in the King's Birthday clash. But it was more of the same to start. Nathan Kruger kicking his first AFL goal in 407 days as the Pies collected the first 3. Melbourne's uphill battle becoming steeper, with star Christian Petrarca needing to be subbed off after receiving a knock in the opening quarter. Needing something to get back into the contest, turnovers killed any momentum the Demons could muster as Collingwood stretched the lead to 27 points at the main break.
How about that for a finish from the big guy?
Steele Sidebottom showed off his hops as the Magpies soared.
He's got it all to do here, and he does.
Kazaya Pickett added some spark with a highlight of his own, but there was little to celebrate for D's fans as the Pies ran away with it.
And then that just sums up the day for the D's.
Jack Crisp receiving the Neil Danaher Trophy for best on ground in his 227th consecutive AFL game, the second longest consecutive game streak in VFL-AFL history. Fraser Fife, ABC News.
Carlton has moved into second place on the AFL ladder with a 26-point victory over rivals Essendon. In front of more than 88,000 fans at a packed MCG, the Blues took charge from the outset, breaking out to a 32-point lead at half-time. The Bombers rallied at times and closed the gap in the second half, but 2 late goals from Alex Chincotta extinguished their hopes. Carlton are now 9-4 for the season, 2 wins behind top of the table Sydney.
we always talk about it. We play some of these big games, we get exposure to big games, and that's what you dream of as a kid. And we've got a bye now, so we're looking forward to getting away and refreshing, and then we'll get some troops back post-bye. So puts us in a really good position for the back half of the year. And as we know, you want to play your best footy in the back half.
High-profile veterans and the next generation of young swimmers are battling out in Brisbane tonight for a spot on Australia's Olympic team for Paris. The Night 1 finals are underway. Our sport reporter Amanda Shalala is there for us tonight. Amanda, the men's 400 metres freestyle should be a close contest. How were the heats today?
Evelyn, I think this one is going to be a blockbuster. We have the 2022 world champion in this event, Elijah Winnington, coming up against the 2023 world champion in this event, Sam Short. Winnington was the fastest qualifier this morning, with Short a few seconds behind. Australia has a decorated history in this event at the Olympics, and should both of those men qualify tonight, as they are expected to do, then they could very well continue that tradition in Paris and contend for the medals.
And there are plenty of big names in action tonight. Who will you be keeping an eye on?
Well, the men's 100-metre breaststroke final will be one to watch for sure. Sam Williamson came very close to breaking a 15-year-old national record in the heats, so he'll be hoping to go faster tonight and be the new national record holder and a national champion as well. We've also seen Emma McKeon in action. She's Australia's most successful Olympian of all time, and she is the fastest qualifier for tonight's women's 100 butterfly final and will be the favourite for that one too. These are also the Paralympic trials, so a lot at stake for Australia's prospective Paralympians. Brendan Hall and Lakeisha Patterson are two of the big names who'll be competing tonight in their respective 400 freestyle finals.
Amanda Shalala reporting there. Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz has won his first French Open title in a 4-hour, 5-set comeback against German Alexander Zverev. Ross.
All the Spanish players who have won this tournament, and be able to put my name on that amazing list is...
Time to check the weather details now, and tonight's photo, it was taken as the sun was rising over Lucky Bay on the Eyre Peninsula and sent to us by Margaret Binky. In the city today, it reached 20.6 degrees at 3 o'clock this afternoon after an overnight low of 11.2. It was mainly fine across the state, although cloudy in the south, clear over the north, where top temperatures were up to 10 degrees above average in some parts. It reached 27 in Coober Pedy and Ceduna. Cloud across the south of the country in a front will bring blustery winds, showers and rain to our southeast, southern New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania, falling as snow over the alpine regions. Showers and storms are likely across WA's west and south, with an unstable air mass and moist winds. High pressure will keep other areas of the country mostly clear. Showers tomorrow for Canberra, Melbourne, Hobart and Perth. A fine day for the other major centres, sunny with 23 for Brisbane, 31 for Broome. Back home, a few showers for Port Pirie tomorrow. Fine in the other northern major districts, 29 for Oodnadatta, 21 for Port Augusta. Showers across the south, more frequent about the agricultural areas with possible gusty thunderstorms about the lower southeast, 19 for Maitland, 21 for Renmark. There's a gale warning tomorrow for the lower southeast coast, and a strong wind warning will continue for central coasts, Investigator Strait and the upper southeast coast. Showers for Adelaide tomorrow, mostly likely in the morning and afternoon. 19 for the city, down to 13 overnight. On the waters, north to northwesterly winds to 20 knots, with seas to 1.5 metres. The sun will rise around 20 past 7 and set around 10 past 5. Looking ahead, the showers will continue until next Saturday, 18 on Wednesday, 16 on Friday, fine and cool with 15 degrees this time next week. That's the latest from the Adelaide newsroom. Thanks for your company. Stay with us, 7:30 is next.